Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. It's 5:45 a.m. in London, so apologies if I'm a bit bleary-eyed, but I woke up today to get high on my own supply. It's a wake and bake session with our new raw PuErh release. Here it is. This is the Honey Tripper, and as you can tell by the name, from my recollection, on drinking the matcha, this is a powerhouse tea. This is a potion. This one is gonna get me tea lifted, I hope. Honey Tripper, you can see the artwork by Celine, the honey badger, with mouth wide open, ready to receive the trippy honey from above, dripping down. You can see with a garland of flowers around the honey badger's head, and this sort of quite trippy background of a purple and slightly sort of neon green, with just the sketch of nature around the honey badger, but that nature has sort of become different. The environment has become different, has become altered as the trippy honey takes effect. You've heard of is it called Mad Honey? I think it's called Mad Honey. And that's sort of what brought this image to mind. When we drank this matcha, we found that it was really an interesting, strange, altered sense of reality, a body sensation. So that's why we made sure that the background just sort of faded into this sort of weird, trippy matrix style. It's just all information. Reality is just all sort of this simulacra, this information, and it's just now the honey badger eating that trippy honey. So this is the Honey Tripper. Let's quickly scope this tea. This is an autumn 2022. So I'm speaking to you from approaching autumn 2024, so it's nearly 2 years old, this tea, autumn 2022 tea. This is the cultivar, the Daiyezhong variety. This is origin, this is Huaju Liangzi in Mongsong in Yunnan in China. And for those of you who are not getting a little shiver up your spine when I say those words, Mongsong is one of those areas that just produces super powerful teas. If you recall Potion Scholar, that's from Mongsong. If you recall Straight-Faced Playmate, that's from the same mountain area, Huaju Liangzi, I should say, in Mongsong, in Yunnan, in China. Super potent, super powerful area. Picking and processing is going to be the standard for raw PuErh processing, and the elevation is high up. This is a very high up peak, 1,900 meters approximately. So a super high altitude, powerful potion tea, but it's an autumn tea, which, as I said, makes it a little bit more interesting in terms of its experience in the mouth, its aroma, from my recollection of the matcha. And it's actually surprising that a tea, again, I'm getting ahead of myself here. I do remember this being one of the strongest teas, and as you can tell by the name Honey Tripper, I'm sort of putting myself all in on this one. I hope that this is going to be a trippy tea, but it's interesting how the autumn, because you normally expect springtime teas to be the most potent. From my recollection, the autumn really hits the spot on this one. So let's see how it goes. I've got another cover here so we can admire it later. Let's open up this Honey Tripper, Huaju Liangzi, the honey badger, looking a little bit sort of fierce and like, just voraciously ready for that honey. But also, interestingly, with that garland of flowers around the head, just to sort of, make sure you realize that this is a peace-loving honey badger as well, all about just sucking up the marrow of life and nature. And check out those leaves, already looking aged, I have to say. Very, very happy with those leaves. Not quite sure what happened with the printing of this Neife. It's a little bit skew-iff, but hey, can't control everything. It's the first time I'm seeing it. So you can see the color of the leaves, really, really beautiful. They're starting to go into that sort of autumnal tone, picking up a little bit more of the oranges and the reds, some of those plummy colors, prune colors. Still got the reminder that this is not that old. We've got some, you know, younger sort of silvery buds, but they are starting moving more antique, and as you can see up here, even more antique buds here. So a lovely display of colors. Let's take this Neife off and let's dive in, make sure we get a nice proportion of everything from the outer leaves and also the middle of the cake. It's kind of important that you do that. You don't just pick from the outside of the leaf, because the leaf is aging differently, right? So on the outside it's getting more of an oxidation process, on the inside it's getting more of a fermentation process, or at least that's my theory. But I think that they are very, very different in terms of their aging, the way that they're aging, and therefore the way that they taste. So it's important when you break up a cake to try to get a full cross section of the cake. And I think I've done a video, I'm losing track of all the videos I've done, but I think I've done a video about the differences between the outside and the inside of a cake. At least if I haven't done it, I've planned it in my head, and that's sort of the way that it works. That's why I can't recall if I've done it. Right, now let's get these leaves into a dry one. I have just woken up. I've literally just jumped in the shower, come out, and so yeah, this is me early in the morning. So yeah, you'll see my early morning face. Good morning, everybody. Wake and bake session, here we go. What temperature water was that? 75. It'll do, it'll do. Is that enough leaf? As you know, I always question myself, but I am conscious of not making myself too wasted this morning, because I know how powerful this tea is, and I want to make sure that I am able to function after this and have a good day. All right, here we go. Let's get these leaves in here. Yeah, I think that's a nice healthy portion of PuErh tea. I'll put this down here in my sort of studio kitchen, like I can just throw everything underneath here. I love that. Try and clear up the mess. As you know, I ain't the neatest of people. Okay, here we go. Let's focus the sensors in. Let's turn this sound off, and let's dive into Honey Tripper Huajuliangzi Autumn 2022 Gushu, I should say, 200 to 250 year old ancient tea tree material. All sounds good to me. Oh wow, what a way to wake up. Oh my gosh, a cornucopia of aromas. The first thing that hits me, or like the first thing that springs to mind, is like pears that have been caramelized with slightly sort of burnt caramel, or very, very dark caramel covered pears. Oh, amazing smell. There's also a very bright note as well to this. I want to say preserved lemons. You can see those leaves. Beautiful mix of colors, but definitely moving into that more aged note. Preserved lemons, also a touch of freshness. Aloe. That burnt pear is actually reminds me also of griddled bananas. Griddled bananas also has a cacao quality, like a raw cacao, ceremonial cacao, whatever that means. But you know, raw cacao, not heated cacao. And sorry, I realized that there's a slight smell of I don't know, was it shampoo or something, soap on this hand. So burnt caramel pears, poached pears, griddled bananas, aloe vera, preserved lemons, touch of grapes, like red grapes as well. So it's a combination of fresh, bright, but the majority of it is deep set. The majority of it is in those caramels, cooked fruits, and a little bit of cacao, as I said. Very, very nice. Forgot a teapot, didn't I? Right. Smell of wet leaf. Pour this away. Do things properly. Okay. Oh, it's so deep. Oh, it's so deep. I feel like I'm falling into this amazing like pit of aromatics. I feel like I'm moving into this sort of deep territory from this deep cover here, which reminds me a little bit of Luminary Misfit, the cover of this cake, where it's all about the character front and center, and the background sort of just becomes muted. Even though it's colorful, it's dark. Reminds me of sort of not ancient, but old school paintings like the Rembrandts of this world, where it's like very sort of dark background. But also just Luminary Misfit was also a slightly sort of trippier tea as well, if you remember. See if that camera can pick it up there. Right, okay, here we go. Okay, so the caramels are there in full effect, toffees, but it's moving into honeys. But it really reminds me of chestnut honey. If you've never had chestnut honey, very particular smell, quite medicinal. It's not nutty. It's very bracing. It reminds me a little bit of manuka honey, but is different still. Chestnut honey. I'm picking up a touch of marzipan, but again, I would move it in I don't know, whatever that means, but darker marzipan. Maybe the nuts are roasted before grinding. I wonder if they make a roasted nut marzipan. Touch of leather, old leather, antique leather. But there are those bright notes as well. I'm picking up some strawberry jam. I'm picking or strawberry coulis, just sort of blitzed up strawberries with some sugar. Again, sugared, deeper than just fresh strawberries. Picking up a little touch of tarragon as well. A little bit of kombucha, or kombucha, let's say, a red wine vinegar, but that sort of slightly vinegared note as well, that complements the carameled toffee notes beautifully. You can take a look at these leaves here. They're definitely starting to age. Wet woods as well. So we're moving into that deep foresty note, the chestnut honeys, the wet woods, the old leathers, but you're still, and the caramels and the what did I say before? The roasted nut marzipan. But then there are some bright notes, as I said, tarragon, strawberry, and that kombucha wake you up, little zingy note on the nose as well. Here we go. Brewing up. Honey tripper. My mouth is parched for tea. And as I've said on other wake and bake sessions, the greatest sip is the first sip of the day, early morning. We're going to brew this for about 25 seconds. Going to keep it relatively short. You can see I'm treading with caution on this tea. Color is lovely, luminous, slightly cloudy, slightly milky in its quality because of all of those trichomes. Apricot coloured liquor. Looking thick as well, I have to say. Looking very, very thick. Here we go. Honey Tripper. Oh, yes. So interesting. The mouthfeel. Oh, so interesting, the mouthfeel. Starts off, it hits your mouth, it's thick, it's jellied. And you're like, wow, really thick, voluptuous, beautiful raw PuErh. But then the autumn character comes in. And what happens is it's so hard to describe, but it goes from like oily to suddenly running away. Like it's almost like this sort of oily, and then the moment it's almost like it melts in your mouth, which obviously doesn't make sense because, you know, it's hot and then it's cooling, but but it feels like that. It feels like it's more solid when it hits your mouth, and then it sort of melts into this very aqueous. I don't want to use the word watery, which I just did, because, you know, it makes it sound like it's like a weak flavor. It's like feels very aqueous and fluid and like running in my mouth. It's soft, it's smooth, soft, smooth, thick to watery or aqueous. It's very interesting. Reminds me of Chime Gatherer. Reminds me of other autumn teas. I think it's one of the beautiful characteristics of autumn teas is that they have this gentler nature to everything. Soft, smooth, but fresh, refreshing. Spring teas are thick and rich and, you know, give you that very physical mouthfeel, and they can be very intense. This one is like so easy drinking, and that combination of thick and rich moving to fresh and liquid is so difficult to describe, but it is a characteristic of some great autumn teas. And I just want to focus on that right now before we move on to taste, which is still, I'm getting little images popping up in my head. But just focus on that texture. Oh, that is an amazing texture. And when I say texture, it really translates into the feel, not just like, a physical feeling, but the feel of the tea. The feel of this tea is like, hi, I'm going to be a very gentle friend of yours. We're going to walk through this together. It has a sense of potency about it, but it's also refreshing and light and easy sipping, and might have to watch out for that, because I really think I could sip on this. Just the refreshing nature of it just makes me want to keep sipping on it. Okay, let's talk about taste. Chestnut honey, chestnut honey, chestnut honey. Little touches of mandarin, mandarin zest, touch of mandarin zest bitters, but it's all in the very fruity and sweet, slightly citrusy. It's almost like when you have one of those cocktails and they squirt the zest, they spritz your glass, but they put a lighter in front of it, or match or whatever, and it gives you that slightly burnt bitters. Burnt it makes it sound acrid. It's not acrid, but you know, that like warmed up, little bit of a toasty, roasty note as well in there. Dried apricots, chestnut honey, mandarin bitters. The caramels are there as well. The little toffee notes are there. Slight touch of cooked rhubarb. But again, if you've cooked that rhubarb and you've zested some mandarins or orange with it. So it's got that orange note, but it's not. I don't want people to get the idea that it's a super zesty tea. It's more the aromatics of those citrus notes and the rhubarb in there, rather than in the mouth. It's when you breathe out. It's that retronasal aroma, breathing out through your nose, just getting that those aromas, but all very cooked, very stewed down. The aloe is there as well. Oh, chestnut honey and apricots though is if you imagine chestnut honey and you've just taken dried apricots and soaked them in there. Some of those wet woods are coming through as well. Golden sultanas. Yeah, those burnt sugars. And I'm, I know I'll be accused of tricking myself here, but I will say, and I'm very sensitive because the first cup of the morning, but I will say that immediately I am experiencing an altered sense. Immediately that blurry-eyed, I'm just waking up feeling has moved into a strange sense of fuzzy focus, where like everything feels a bit fuzzy, but that around, like fuzzying around, but at the same time there's a strange sort of ultra sharp focus right where I want it to be. It's almost, digital, that focus, within that fuzzy background. It's sort of this interesting play of sort of digital and analog in my vision right now. Okay, we'll see. But I think, and I know that people are saying it's not possible that the compounds in that tea have been absorbed by your blood or anything, and it's all in your head. I strongly, in all my experience of tea drinking, I strongly feel, and I'm gonna sound a bit on the edge here, but I strongly feel that the body sensation reaction of a tea is not simply coming from the ingestion of these chemicals into your bloodstream and affecting your brain chemistry. Or if it is, then somehow that happens sublingually. In other words, it gets somehow absorbed through into your blood directly from your tongue, because you can instantly get a sense. I'm getting little tingles of shivers up my spine. I feel a sense of very specific change. And I wasn't expecting it to hit me this quickly, and it's so interesting because the taste is so easy sipping, and I said, got that calm, refreshing quality to it. But the taste with those burnt bitters, with that deep chestnut honey, it has a medicinal quality to it in terms of the taste. It has a depth, it has a little a gentle bite. It's not a sharp bite, but it's a bite that you feel it's like a padded bite. It's like you've padded yourself with lots of blankets, and then a dog has bitten you. It's like, I can feel it, but it's comfortable. It's that kind of bite in the mouth. It's like, oh, it's there, but it's not the weird analogies I come up with. But yeah, no, this is a dog bite tea. No, it's not. But you know what I mean. I hope you know what I mean. It's softened. It's padded, and that's the autumn character. But that's why it's dangerous, because you just think, oh, it's fine, and then you sip away, and it's tasty. It really is yummy. I'm trying to sort of, there's a fruity note here that keeps on coming. What is that? Again, a dried fruit, but it's not apricot. Oh, it's, yes, and it's in the smell of the empty cup, because the aftertaste and the smell of the empty cup usually are relatively similar. Usually warmer, more sugared. Very much reminds me of these those Japanese hoshigaki, which is a flavor note which I've used quite a few times, but it's dried persimmon, very ultra ripe, jellied dried persimmon that have been dried out in the sun, so they naturally form this crystalline sort of sugary, natural sugary frosting around the persimmon. Sweet persimmon sweetness in my mouth and in the empty Gongdabe. Sort of reminds me of like candied papaya. If you've never had hoshigaki, then that would be the closest that I would relate it to. Oh my gosh. This is no joke, this tea. Flavor notes continue. That little touch of mandarin bitters just on the sides complements the sweetness of those dried apricots and honey so well. I mean, it's a taste which is not overly complex. You're not going to see hundreds of tea pictures around me, but it's so focused on these amazing notes: honeys, dried fruits, touch of zesty bitters. It's just like such a lovely combination that it is still full palate. It still hits you in such a satisfying way. It may not have the cameos of lots of different sort of like, oh, what's that? You know, popping in and out that spring teas do. Autumn teas tend to be more together, more sort of a comprehensive and more reduced down, minimal tasting notes, but maximal in terms of their presence. If you remember Chime Gatherer, very similar. Again, the persimmon and snow quality. This one is much warmer, the chestnut honeys. If you remember Straight Face Playmate, for those of you who managed to get that tea, that's another Huaju Longzi, and that also had that citrusy quality, that sort of like dried peel or slightly like, as I said, like zest that had been flambéed, like sort of cooked caramels and sort of dark caramels and those bitters. Straight Face Playmate had that as well. There is a liveliness as well, an openness to the top end of this tea. It's not quite snowy, but it's definitely in the autumnal territory, in the pre-winter territory. Oh, more notes coming through. Peach Melba. I see the environment of being out in sort of late October. It's not autumnal. It's like a mountain. So there's no trees around. It's like mountain air, but just before winter is about to roll in. There's a freshness in it, as well as all of those warmer carameled and cooked and dried fruit notes. And there's a creaminess as well. I'll try and get it on the next one. So just as I was saying that it's not as complex, these little notes are popping out, but it's still hard to describe. But with autumn teas, the evolution is more of a slow and steady evolution. With spring teas, it's like blink and you'll miss it. They're just, everything's sort of sparkling and popping in and out of focus. With autumn teas, it's just more deep set. It's more sort of slow and steady, wins the race. But they come and they stay. They tend to persist. It tends to be a consistent character. I don't know how or why that is the case, but it's almost like the whole year has had its chance to set into these tea leaves, and they are just now expressing that year, whereas springtime is all brand new, right? So, oh, we've just arrived after our winter dormancy. We've got so much to say. Blah, blah, blah. You know, autumn teas tend to be a little bit more slow speaking. Pear, fresh pear now. The brighter notes are coming through. You know how pear can have almost like a creamy quality to it, a good fresh pear. That's what I mean by creamy. It's not creamy like lactone creamy, but it's got that milkier quality to it. Oh, and loads of that mountain air coming through. But I am really feeling it. So I'm going to stop now. We'll roll through some infusions. I'll come back with body sensation. This is the first time in all my sessions with you that I'm stopping after 3 infusions of this tea. It is immense, the power of this tea. Everything around me feels different. Like, first of all, when I move my head like that, it's just, you know, it's like in the periphery, things are wavy. In the middle, things are very focused. So like where I focus, it's very focused, hyper-focused, but then wavy in the background. Very similar to this cover. Everything sort of feels, reality feels different, feels definitely more trippy. I can't really speak very well either. Euphoric, high, buzzy, lifting, excitable, rising, sort of giddy, butterflies in my stomach, excitement. It's trippy tea. I kind of regret that I did this video standing up. I wish I was on my sofa, because I just feel like I just want to like let it settle in. It is so strong, this tea. And I noticed that after 3 or 4 sips, 3 or 4 cups of tea. It's a strong tea. It's euphoric. It is just one of those distinct reminders. And even a seasoned drinker like myself, I'm shocked at how strong this body sensation is. Huaju Liangzi, up there, super high peaks, autumn 2022 tea, immense. Taste, while I can still talk. I imagine myself sitting on a mountain. It is late autumn, early winter. It's sort of a blustery day. But it's still, I'm still able to sit outside, but I can smell that ionized air of winter is approaching. I'm eating an apricot, cooked apricot tart that's drizzled in very dark butterscotch, and I've got a grating of very, very potent mandarin zest on it. But then I also have fresh pears, white peaches, perfumed, bright, light, mixing with that mountain air beautifully. It's got the bright, fruity, creamy notes, fragrant notes of those fresh fruits, the cooked fruits, the honeys, the burnt butterscotch, that mandarin zest, and that bracing quality that only autumn teas can provide, of that fresh, winter is approaching, mountain air. I am swaying. I feel like I need to now go and just sit down and let this set in. Very, very powerful tea. One of the most powerful teas that I can recall us ever having. I'd love to A/B this against Potion Scholar and the other teas that are sort of legendary in our catalogue. But I don't think that that would be possible because it would just send me over the edge. Maybe if I'm feeling brave for another session. The Honey Tripper. Wow with a capital W. If you want to experience a tea drunk feeling, you will, I mean, if you don't feel it on this, then you are immune to the powers of tea. It is quite something. That's it, tea heads. Check out our other videos, taste our teas wherever you are in the world by browsing mayleaf.com, and come visit us if you're ever in London. On that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the potent stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.